Hi there. I've returned back to my home in North Woodstock after having some wonderful lessons with Ken Ebo in Virginia Beach. And I think I need to put a little bit of explanation at the beginning of this video because technical difficulties caused me not to be able to have the complete video available online. There's some wonderful information. I'm really grateful to Ken for welcoming me into his home in Virginia Beach. And lots of comments on the video are going to be really wonderful. He talks about equipment, he talks about embouchure, he talks about buzzing. A lot of his conversation is going to be about what it's like to be a military musician, and I think that would be very valuable to some people. In the video, you hear us talking about the book. The book is Comeback Chops, Common Sense for Comeback Chops, and it was written by Ken. I found a copy of it last year at the ITF in Columbus, Georgia, and while I was there, I happened to bump into Ken, and he was one of the first people who was really supportive of this project. So I'd like to thank him for that. I'd like to apologize to everyone for not having the end of the video, but I think that you'll still see that there was a lot to be had in my lesson in Virginia Beach with Ken Ebo.
And I guess I should, by way of explanation, I should explain a little bit about, because it colors a lot of the way I'm teaching right now. Because, I teach anyone comes into the Navy and the Marine Corps comes through my studio right now, trombone players. And I'm getting just such a wide variety of ability levels and maturity levels and all that kind of thing. I've had doctoral students and people like Garrett there's some other Navy guys, the bone player from Synergy Brass Quintet, Jordan Witt, and some other guys. And then I have on the Marine side some most often guys come right out of high school. And part of my job is not just teaching them about music and art and all that stuff. It's about preparing them for life in the fleet.
Right. And
all of the things, so for instance, they are required to keep a weekly practice record, meticulously, what they're doing, and it takes some people a hard time, and if they don't do that, I have to explain to them, you're not just, the reason we're doing this is not just to keep practicing, I don't really care if you're practicing, because you're going to show whether or not you're practicing. I don't need you to show them the record, but the problem is, you're in the military, in the Marines, and this paperwork is going to be very important when you get out there. Maybe you're going to work in your ops section, and you're going to have to deal with a sponsor, and you have to keep meticulous record for the government, etc. So it's a whole bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they have an incoming audition. They have 2 benchmarks, a midpoint audition, 2 further benchmarks, and one of those is kind of like a studio recital for their peers, and then a final audition. And
so
all in 6 months.
So are you like what used to be the Great Lakes School?
Yeah, well, the Great Lakes is that's the naval. That's where the naval boot camp is.
Oh,
but this is the Navy. This is the Armed Forces School of Music. Well, it's now the Naval School of Music.
Okay.
It used to be at Anacostia in Washington D.C. Now it's here. It was Army, Navy, and Marine Corps. Now the Army is doing their own. They've deconsolidated. Although we're shared facilities, they've deconsolidated programs. But it's now the Navy and Marine Corps programs side that I work for.
Okay.
So it's
6 months. Is that how long?
6 months. If they score well enough on there, we use a 4.0 grading scale, but it's really a 2.3 to 3.2 kind of. 3.2 is the instructor designation you have to have. You have to have that score to be an instructor. 3.0 is the designation to be a staff NCO. And so all that fits in 6 months. So I have to fit into that box, and I have to. Whereas if I had in another circumstance, I may deal with some other type of things. There's some fundamental things, but I have to get them into this box. And scales is part of it too. And so scales is only 10% of the audition, but some of the guys end up spending 40% of their time working on 10% of the audition. So it's a lot of challenges to fit the teaching into that model. But it's been very rewarding because it's made me really reevaluate.
The efficiency that you have to bring to the teaching. I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely.
It's not
that's a big deal.
It's not like you got 4 years to figure out what you're going to do with the kids.
I'm supposed to. I look at it, giving them tools and equipping them. I'm always telling them about this is not just for now. This is for down the road. Take these principles. These are tools you're going to work with when you get to your bands. Because it's very easy in the military band system, particularly Marines, to get out there and you're doing all kinds of, you're working a lot, ceremonial functions and this and the body of marches and whatnot that you're using. And we have other ensembles, brass quintets, woodwind quintets, jazz bands, combos, brass bands, that type of thing. But there's not, if you're not driven, you know, with those artistic ideals and principles, it's really easy to become complacent.
Right.
Let's just get dressed, do the gig, go on. And that's okay because you're fulfilling the mission.
Right.
And that's what's important. You know, the Marines care about getting the mission done, and that's important. But if you wanted to grow as an artist and as an instrumentalist, you have to go beyond that too. And by doing that, then you enhance mission capability. So it's kind of a circle, but it's different than any other music gig. It's very unique. It has its challenges, frustrations. You know, I don't say that to, you know, I wish I was somewhere else. I mean, I'm thankful for the job. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here doing that. But you know, they always say, you know, the grass is always greener over the septic tank. You know.
Yeah, right.
But I teach efficiency a lot because one of the big things they're learning. In fact, I brought some stuff to show you too about get your opinion on some stuff about you know, just it's more time management and how to be very efficient. You know, we got to get out of the mind the thinking that I got to sit here for an hour. You know. Yeah. But that may not be the best thing for your face. If you've been in 5 ensembles a day with some of my guys, they're in 5 ensembles, 2 different classes, and 2 of those are field band, marching. If they don't know how to manage their face, get a proper fundamental routine and warm up and manage throughout the day, then at night they have nothing, and then how are they going to fit into that instrumental box? Well, you want to do some playing and then
sure.
Talk from there?
I will do whatever you...
Did you warm up?
I buzzed in the car on the way down, but I haven't really done anything.
Well, if you want to know, I mean, just to warm up, for me, you know, the warm up is, we talk about warm up, but that's very fluid, you know, because it depends on how conditioned you are up here and all that stuff. And so the way I am right now, I've been playing, I don't need a lot to physically warm up, but the warm up is more for up here, getting all that sense and loosening some things up and whatever. But and I really am, I've been doing it and getting a lot of my students to do a lot of glisses, you know, in this warm up. I know that's part of a lot of people's routine. But why don't we do some things? You want to do, since we you know, just feeling stuff out. I can do one, then you do it right after me.
Okay.
I can do one because I need, you know, I need to loosen up a little bit too. I take the thing and I build it a little bit each time, and I don't always use the same one. And what that does, because I really preach, you know, if you've looked at my book, you know, I really preach a lot about the resting part, you know, and resting as much as you play. When I was in school, and then after that, I went on the road with a group, and we were in a different place every night. It was a contemporary Christian group, and we had a horn line. And me and my friend, we would warm up together. Of course, in Indiana, we would do it a lot. Find someone in the practice room and do your routines together.
Right. Yeah.
I studied a little bit with, of course, I studied with Dee Stewart, but I had studied some with Dominic Spira as well, and a little bit with David. But his was more about my lessons with him were more about the improvisation. And but he, of course, being an old bone player, he of course you know, gave me some of his stuff with that. But Dominic Spira had me on some like kind of a modified kind of Carmine Caruso some of those things to really build my chops. Because at the time I was playing lead in his band, and I really wanted to build some, and he gave me some stuff that really helped. But the point is, doing it with someone else, I've always loved warming up, because when I don't, what happens in this human nature? All right, let me get going. I gotta do this. We're always thinking about what's happening there, instead of thinking about what I'm doing now is going to affect what happens there. Mm-hmm. Just getting there is not the deal. You've got to do do this properly to be effective when you get there. And so this rest is a big deal. So when I do these things, I build a little bit on top. Again, it's not the original. Everyone does this, but I build a little bit on top, and but each time that then the students doing it, and they're we're resting the same amount, and I like that. I like the glisses because a lot of times I don't have time to do with a student. I don't have time to do a big full routine. It's really incumbent upon them to do it before they get here,
Yeah,
so
right.
some of my guys, what that means for them is they're going to have, they may have to get up, they may get up at 4:45 to do their physical training at 5:15, and then they have a little bit of recovery time to get back, and they have a 7:15 muster, and then, on the days when they have morning PT, there's not a lot of time for morning routine. So I give them, hopefully they're getting conditioned, and then I give them some hasty routines to get them through. In fact, I had like a weekend warrior routine that I gave out last year at the ITF. One of those freebies. I use it for this to get people who aren't playing, but for guys who are playing, couple minutes, and at least if I can get them doing this, and they can maybe see the value in warming up somewhat, because they don't get it. Some of my younger ones, they come in, and then the first 2 periods they have in the day in the summertime, we're changing over our schedule, this week. The first 2 periods of the day are marching band. Now you get up, and the first thing you do, walk around,
punch yourself in the face. Yeah.
This destroys your effectiveness. It affects your endurance, your longevity, affects everything. So, I can't order them to do it, but the ones that I encourage to do it, and they take heed. They come in, when they don't have physical training in the mornings, then they'll get up, go to breakfast. The chow hall opens at 6. They'll be there at 6. They can be over at the School of Music building, starting their warm-up between 6:20 and 6:30, and that gives them at least 30 to 40 minutes before they can take a break and get ready for their muster, and then be out on the field. Try to teach them how to gauge themselves and pace themselves, through. I like the glisses because, as I was taught, keeping that airstream going, and the full sound. And I noticed that mine were a little bit more relaxed. You wanted to get to the end of the gliss first. It's not really the destinations. Take your time. I like to take my time through the gliss and try to keep that sound steady. And when I was, D. Stewart used to have me picture the sound as different things, and I really liked that. And I got into a love of analogies, but I would think of it as colors coming out of the bell, or a stream of billow of smoke, or so, different things. But I like to keep it solid and see if my sound's matching that picture. So I take my time all the way through it. And I just kind of let it settle. Right, and even up to the top, like if you've ever been on one of those log rides, like at the amusement park or something, you get up there and you click, 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 and before you go down, it's like coon, coon, and you just, I don't know if they designed it like that or not, but they just let you coon, sit there for a moment, building up, the anxiety, and then at the bottom, you settle in. So I kind of think like that, I settle up here it comes, and then I let it, let the gliss go. So here's another variation on that that I like to do. I put something like this in the book too, but just going back and forth. So try this one. So we get down to the bottom, just pop down, nice little footer. you can settle down there, then lip slur down and come back up. I like to do it like not even stopping.
Okay, so just
Coming. But either way, the way you did it is fine too. You can go down and then lip slur down and then come back up.
yeah.
The benefits exactly the same. So then you can vary that. You can go the other way too. So in first and sixth position, every time you get to first or sixth, you go up one partial and then gliss to the first or sixth.
And now those are in the book that I used.
Yeah, a variation is that.
But I did it much faster.
Yeah.
Much quicker.
Well, you can do it. I mean, you can vary it. You can go at whatever speed you want. So you're getting a couple birds with one stone there. You're getting the airstream.
Right,
of course, the sound is paramount overall. They're keeping it through the gliss. You're getting that nice pop of a lip slur. Working on your cleanliness on those things, and then and then also it's just kind of fluidity too. I like those ideas too. You talk about the sound, and I remember, Howard, you've probably seen Jake do this thing when he plays. Here's how, Bill Harris would play this.
Oh yeah,
And I remember we were going through row shoes, all right, how would JJ play this? All right, now play it like this, or play it like this. Or you could, I even see this from students, play it like you're playing it for a birthday party. Okay, now play it like you're playing it at a graveside. Now play it like you're playing it. And it's amazing the change, just because of something that's thinking up here.
Yeah.
That's the connection. I think that a lot of teaching it has to move, because with the body of teachers and pedagogy that we have right now, we pretty much covered. This is not, we're not going to discover, I don't think, anything new about the mechanics, about all that stuff, although we continue to refine that stuff.
Yeah.
I think where we're at now, what I'm finding now, what I'm working with is that going back to that efficiency. And so I have a guy, like yesterday I was in a lesson this week, and the guy was playing something, and just totally, we were reading something, and he just totally bombed it, had some syncopation, whatever, just totally bombed it. Oh, it's just terrible. If I had to grade it, he would have failed that, So we stopped. I said, I explained a little bit, about the thing, about the passage, whatever, and then we sang through it, and then boom, he played it perfect. Now, we're talking about 15 seconds, 20 seconds. One, just awful. 15 seconds later, perfect. Now there's something there that we need to to deal with. If we can find where that veil was and remove that veil earlier, then think about the efficiency that's going to happen. And studio players do this a lot because I don't know if they even describe what they're doing, but it happens because they've gotten, that's how they're trained into, like I tell my students, play it, you may take it the third time to get it right. Okay, I say play it the third time the first time.
Yeah.
So I want to do this, make sure I'm fitting into what you wanted to get out of this. So I'm gearing this, I'm kind of telling you how I'm approaching a lot of different things. But if you want to talk about some specific stuff, if you want to work on something specific, I'm not sure what I can offer you. Probably not much more than you're going to have. You've had some great lessons already.
That stuff that you were just saying about the mindset. I know I've heard that before, but nobody said it in a lesson yet, and so that's great that people who are going to see it. What I would do is, if I was coming to you for my first lesson and I was going to be coming, I would say, man, I don't like my playing because number one, I'm not accurate enough, and I get tired. So maybe we could play a little bit.
All right. Well, with and I can tell you off the bat, one thing I hear, when you're doing those things, I can hear some of the unsteadiness.
Yeah.
As we're going down, and as you would settle down on the note, and a little bit of trouble on the lip slurring down or whatever. And so the next thing we'll play some first, then we can do this. But I would immediately take you to the mouthpiece.
Okay.
And see where that goes. Well, let's find one of these duets that just something. This is, I don't know if you ever worked out of this book before. It's just like something I got from Charles Colvin one time. And, I find it they're not.
I have not done these, but
they're kind of cool. You want to do the top or bottom?
Okay, I'll do start on the bottom.
Okay. 1, 2. Especially in relation to the top part. So that'd be the first thing I'd say. Don't play as loud. I could go into this whole rhythm. I like to keep things simple, and instead of getting into all that, it's like going back to the breathing stuff. You're talking about all the mechanic stuff, but just take in air. Okay, just below. Just start there, and then all the mechanic stuff usually takes place. So right off the bat, let's do a couple bars of this again, and just stay under my part. I don't mean that in a prideful way, but just as a softer part, because then we can go from there and kind of shape it a little bit. Let's just do the first 4 bars or so. 1, 2. Now let's even go further than that. And one thing that I do with my students too, especially when we're talking about expressive devices and things. And my wife being did her doctorate in choral conducting, so it's all about. She taught me a lot about how choirs do this type of thing, and they really over enunciate, and they really exaggerate all these expressive things, so the cat in the back row can understand them. Let's do the same thing. So come down. What dynamic level do you think you were just playing at?
Mezzo forte.
All right.
Or more.
All right. We'll play at a mezzo piano now.
Okay.
You play at mezzo piano. 1, 2. And already I think the character's changed on what we're doing. All right. Now, just for kicks, play at a piano level. 1, 2. Said pianissimo.
Okay.
What if I said pianissimo? Let's see what happens. 1, 2. Yeah. So sometimes it's just a matter of where we put our price tags. In your mind, mezzo forte, and you would come out swinging.
Yeah.
But that's mezzo forte. You're playing full sound and all this. Part of your fatigue issues may just be that you're playing too loud.
Well, that could be. Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's probably more than that, but that may be one part of it. Like, have you ever listened to? Have you ever done like a Leslie's routine?
I haven't done it. No.
Then there's a tape of him explaining his routine, or if you've been to one of the master classes where he's gone through that. Anyway, there's buzzing in there in the beginning and stuff. Right. And I like buzzing in my routine too, my morning routine and all this. But I really like the fact that he backs up. We don't have to buzz real loudly, and don't play real loudly on your fundamental routine. You don't have to practice on it, because that's what you're going to be doing the rest of the day. Particularly in our line of work, with ceremonial band, drill band, and even concert band. facility. Sometimes a lot of bands I think tend to overblow more than they tend to hold
Right,
back. You
yeah.
know, I mean, particularly brass players.
Right.
And so that can wear you out a little bit. So it may just be a matter of one part of your puzzle may just be a matter of taking all your price tags, what you thought his mezzo forte is, now make that your fortissimo, and what you thought is, you know, mezzo piano now is your mezzo forte, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And who knows, that alone might give you a little bit more endurance than you've had before. Plus, it allows you some room to do some stuff, you know, to shape things further. I like to talk about dynamics as like looking at the Grand Canyon, you see the different strata of rock. Like, so one of those strata is you can think of it as a dynamic. But notice that dynamic is wide, and there's a lot of room within that. And the dynamic itself goes up and down. So let's try this. You do the top line by yourself, just the first 4 bars. Now do it buzzing on the mouthpiece. And no tongue, just air attack everything and just go right through bliss everything. Yeah, not bad. What I always try to achieve on those buzz in the mouthpiece, of course, is, and this is kind of an oxymoron, but a beautiful buzz sound.
Right.
You know, pure buzz, if you will.
Okay.
But it's the more buzz, I think, the better. Do that one more time.
Well, maybe we can just talk a little bit about muscles, because for the longest time I was trying to control everything right here, right in here, and what's it, the orbicular oris, or the round one.
Orbicular oris, yeah, whatever that is.
And just recently, when I took a lesson, the teacher said, firm here, and I was having trouble, we were listening buzzes as high as we could go, and I would get to a spot where it would just quit. And he said, think of bringing the corners in as you go up higher. And then I started feeling, oh, okay, I'm actually controlling with, I don't know, masseter or whatever this is over here. And I think that may have something to do with it, but it's a long transition process. It used to quit about halfway up there.
Yeah.
And now I don't know where it's going to.
Well, there is some, I mean, we're definitely talking about, Dominic Spirit used to say that, you know, trumpet playing and brass playing in general, this is an athletic event. You know, and this is, you know, there is some athleticism involved here in building some of this stuff. And it is true, you could put, like I know that, like I was saying before, you know, some people are talking about putting the focus right here in this part.
Yeah.
Like if you are flexing a muscle right here and you want to flex the bicep or flex the forearm, you're not just flexing that muscle, you're flexing others, but you're concentrating in your mind on this muscle, and you can achieve a burn or something in that muscle somehow, because your brain is telling you, you're not sure exactly what you're doing, but you're flexing it. So if you're thinking, where's my point of effort up here, you know, when I'm buzzing, is it right here? Is it here? Is it up here? I don't think too much in terms like that. Although and sometimes when I'm training when I'm isolating, if you will, I prefer to think down in this area and not so much here. But when I'm playing, I'm not thinking, okay, put the foot. I don't. In fact, I want to go away from feeling tense at all.
This is analysis stuff I'm doing, but at the same time, and everybody has told me this too, when you think more about here, it's going. That's when notes don't speak.
Exactly.
And so one teacher said, you know, play to the bell. If the note doesn't start right, then don't think about how you start the note. Think about the note being past your bell or making your bell vibrate or something.
I would say, what are you trying to sound like? You know, I would immediately go back to not worrying about the mechanics so much, especially if nothing is really crazy happening, you know. But think about, all right. In fact, with my students, you know, I was like, okay, let me play and you play. Match this. I play. Match this. Match this. You know, and some of that will take care of itself. But it is good to do the analysis part of it and examine kind of what we're doing here. Have you, like I mentioned some of the Caruso type stuff that Dom Severa had me do. It was like your air attack a note, rest, air attack,
hot top.
Well, just air attack the note, and then you could attack the next one, or air attack both if you want to as a variation, and then breathe through the nose. Don't take it off the face, and go chromatically all the way up, and you'll feel kind of a burn in there. You know, usually around this area, but perhaps maybe down here. That may, you know, it's just kind of a strengthening exercise. And
that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. I notice now, because I'm using the corners the way I'm using, I do start to feel a burn here, which I never did before, because this was just flopping in the way. I see what you're doing. I can see that you have, as you went through, you also used a little pivot. And as you went down.
Sometimes I do, In fact, sometimes I'll, you know, when I go down, pivot down a little bit. I'm not opposed to doing that. In fact, for a time I had, you know, more like 3 sets, and actually working with Doug, I have eliminated that to a good degree, except when I go up like an altissimo and really work that. And so I've learned just by doing it to work on making it more. The point is, everyone is, I think this stuff is healthy, but everyone's an individual, and we're talking about individual people here. Think about this: they make all these trombones basically the same way. Well, our hands are built differently, you know. And now some makers are going. I've had female trombone students before with getting problems here, and I've had to have them, encourage them to get some cuts. I even changed my grip for a while from this. I go like this sometimes.
Oh, really?
It's just it's more natural. My hand. What looks more natural, that or that? I'm twisted there, and the pressure. So this, I'm letting the horn rest, and this is just natural. That's what I was going to say. At some point, you just have to remember you're trying to. It's about art and music, and just play. And again, as long as you're not doing something so unhealthy that's crazy that's going to harm you or hurt you, but the point I'm trying to make is that we're all individuals, and something that's going to work for me along those lines may not work, and also the way we describe it too, because this is why, you know, I was never taught, you know, my teachers never, you know, talk about breathing with a diaphragm and all this stuff, because it just doesn't make sense. I mean, who knows when but we associate words and terms with certain things. It's better to go take a full breath, get this sensation, take a full breath, and the air and everything. Same thing. If I'm going to talk to you about, I may say, okay, well, you need to put your focus of effort right here. No, that may mean something totally different to you.
Yeah, and it could lead to all kinds of tension.
And it could lead to something different. And I think while it's good to talk about that, it'd be much better to make sure you have a real formulated concept of the sound you want and what you're trying to achieve. And like another thing I stress is the pain. There shouldn't be pain. And just also, even if you're not playing all the time, because some of the people that I know that only play on the weekend, like, you know, in my church orchestra or something like that, I would encourage them to, you know, do that. Like, here's something you can do every day. It's only take you 4 minutes. And at least that's something. Our buzz, you know, a little bit. At least it's something to maintain. This is a physical, you know, thing. This is conditioning we're talking about. You know, in the Marines we deal with this a lot with the body conditioning. We have physical fitness tests that we do every year, and a combat fitness test we do. And you can't just walk into that. You know, you have to. We train ourselves. We have lives and everything else. So we're training every week. We have a regimen of both individual responsibility and as a unit to try and maintain some semblance. But then as we all get closer, it's just human nature. You're going to really beef up your training to get to that goal. But it's something that you have to. It's a progression. And you have to continue to do it and maintain and get better. There's a physical aspect to it. I mean, age is another thing too. You know, like when I talk about getting glasses. You know, so now here's another thing in age. These bodies, I like to tell people my office is if you look up this second law of thermodynamics, you know, entropy. They'll see a picture of my office because everything moves from order to disorder. It's kind of the same with us. We're you know, we're in a continuum. Well, we talk about building, but it's really in a continual process. process of decay. If you think about it, I'm not trying to be morbid.
Yeah, but no, you're right.
But you have to manage then your plan, your face, and I've had to come to terms with a lot of stuff like that. And you were talking earlier about jigs wig. I'm talking about it's not, all about all this stuff. Is why are you doing this? There's a lot to be said for being content with where you are, and obviously building and striving, but also knowing where your limitations are, and also priorities. I teach my guys a lot about that because I make it clear. Look, I've devoted a lot of time and energy and money to trombone playing and that art and all that stuff. But I'm not going to sacrifice my family for this hunk of brass. When I'm done at work, that's why I get up 4:30 in the morning so I can get to work, leave here about 5:30ish or so, get to work right when the building opens, and have my morning time to do my routine and get myself set. And then when I'm not teaching or doing other duties, I practice throughout the day. But when I come home, I rarely practice at home because that's not my priority. My horn falls underneath my family, priority-wise. And so I know that there are certain things I'm not going to achieve on the horn, and I'm okay with that. Want to try another duet?
Sure.
Let's just try something else. Let's just try one of these. Let's try this first bull right here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So let's go back to right here. Okay. 2, 1, 2, 3. So how much buzzing do you do when you're
when I'm practicing?
as part of your routine, as part of your practicing?
Well, the very first thing I do is I buzz a couple of the Brad Edwards buzzing things, and then the glissandos. Then I do the glissandos. What's next? Oh, the lip slurs. It's first time buzz, second time.
Yeah.
Second time. So I do a lot of buzzing.
Right.
Well, I take that back. I do some buzzing now,
Right.
which is a lot more than I ever did before.
Do you notice when you're doing it, like if you're working through some material or something and you play a line, like when you play this, you notice
Right.
if you play
and then I buzz it,
and
and
go
then I
back
can
to
play
home,
it.
what do you experience then?
Much, I use Sing Buzz Play all the time with myself and my students, because usually when you blip something, it's because it's not here,
Right.
and you get it when you have to do it on the horn, on the mouthpiece. It does work. So yeah, I do buzzing. I think I probably spend more time when I buzz worrying about pitch rather than the buzz itself. Like you said,
Right.
the buzz needs to be rich and full.
Yeah, thinking about that, but
I
because
think
you got a
more
lot
about
of air and not as much buzz. I think the more vibration, the better.
And I think I'm worried more. Oh, is that in tune? Am I playing the right note on the mouthpiece?
Right. Well, both are important. Now sometimes when I talk about that's another thing that has to be kind of qualified. If I tell a student that think about more buzz, so that's the goal, and then if it doesn't happen, we might get more into it. But you don't want to clamp down to make the blips buzz more.
Right.
You want to think from the wind perspective, but again, it's the goal. Hearing that and making that. I have a student right now, and his sound is very he's very rudimentary sound, and sure enough, when when I have him buzz, it's very wavery, and we've worked on that, and he's hearing the connection. Hey, this is amplifying what's happening up here, and I get this right.
Yeah.
So that's a good part of what we're doing to work on that. you know, and also doing those glisses on the mouthpiece too, you know, because that. You know,
Yeah.
keeping that buzz feeling full. I've never been a huge gear freak, but you know, just for your information, what I feel about that is, for a while I was actually going to go to try to use one rim for everything.
Yeah.
And then change stuff. And you know, I started down that road and it wasn't working. And I talked to some friends. There's a guy, a studio player that I know from Nashville, and some other guys that I just either knew or acquainted with, and I came to the conclusion, you know what? Why am I going to try and do that? Here, here's when I play the big horn. Here's my setup.
Right.
The mouthpiece needs to match the horn, and the horn needs to match the job. All right, it's the tool.
And that's changed. I mean, I'm a lot older than you are. When I was a high school kid, it was no, you don't switch mouthpieces, because the reason you can't play high isn't because of the mouthpiece.
Right.
And so we had a mindset that you used the same mouthpiece and the same horn for everything that you were doing. Now you may, if you're doing a jazz gig and you're doing a lot of lead work, you might go to a little bit smaller
and that's
horn.
Kind of where I geared to. Most of my work is jazz commercial. Like last night, there was no one was going to bring my 88 to play lead for a big band, for a Vegas singer, you know. So and if I'm doing something, I might even bring that New York 6 if it's something like a salsa thing or something where I really need a lot of bite and a lot of endurance for a long time. You know, this is a 500 board, but it gives me the versatility. You know, not to get into a bunch of equipment stuff. I also have a 525 board, which I think is the best bore size for military music.
Oh, really?
Because it's the most adaptable. I can do almost anything that we do with that 525. I can do everything from the concert, brass quintet, to jazz, everything except for perhaps if there's a really screaming lead thing or something.
Does it have an attachment?
No, it's a straight horn. But an attachment would make it even more versatile. Yeah. In fact, the one horn that I got for one of the I had our supply guys order for one of our units was that I was in was that it was, and I had the interchangeable neck pipe, so you could do the trigger and the straight to make it adaptable. That bore is great, has a great bore size. I didn't pull that out, but you know, I think I've talked to you know, think about this. You know, now we have so many of these horns and they're expensive. You know, something like 4,500, 4,800, 5,000 and above horn, up to 5 figures for some of these custom bass bones and whatever else they're playing. But then you go back and you listen to all these great recordings. You know, go listen to the Gabrielli recording with all the Philadelphia Chicago, and go listen to some of the great recordings from Philadelphia and Chicago, whatever. What are those guys playing to get that sound? You know, think about that for a minute. You know, you're going to find a lot of that horn right there, and 6.5 AL, and some of it. You know, it wasn't. We get too gear minded, I think. And we get less player minded, you know, and so I agree with you. My point is not to have a different horn, but for what I do, I had to come to terms with the fact that I'm gonna, and especially again age, where I am right now is working better for me. Some guys, again, individual, they can maybe do that. I know guys with a wide rim that can just scream and punch and all that stuff, but for me, it's working better. Here's my big horn setup. I've settled on this mouthpiece, this horn, and that works for what I need to do. You know, here's my small horn. Here's my almost everything else kind of horn setup. And this horn plays, it's only 500, but it sounds bigger. You know, and so that's where I am.